The rumors circulated through the station like an airborne contagion, spreading from one sentient to another with each retelling growing more fantastical than the last. Arcadia Station, that ramshackle collection of prefabricated modules and repurposed ship parts hanging at the edge of charted space, had always been a breeding ground for tall tales. But this particular story seemed too outlandish, even by Arcadia standards. I first heard it in the common mess hall, where species from a dozen worlds gathered to consume their nutritional requirements and exchange information of varying reliability. A Valerian trader with iridescent scales and too many fingers was gesticulating wildly to a captivated audience. And then the human, just a maintenance worker, mind you, stopped the Cthar warrior with nothing but a touch to the face. A single movement of one soft, clawless hand. The gathered aliens erupted in disbelief and excitement. I merely flicked my sensory appendages in dismissal and continued analyzing the protein structure of my meal. Nonsense, obviously. The Cthar were the apex predators of the Outer Rim, four-eyed nightmares with chameleonic abilities and hunting instincts honed across millennia of evolution. The idea that one would retreat from a human, the soft, fragile newcomers to the galactic community, was laughable. I am Xyler Naveen, xenobiologist and diplomatic liaison for the collective of Aligned Worlds. My current assignment to Arcadia Station was meant to be straightforward. Conduct preliminary research on microbial life forms in the nearby asteroid belt and facilitate minor trade agreements between the human mining operations and collective interests. Nothing in my briefing mentioned Cthar, who rarely ventured this far into regulated space, or humans engaging in implausible acts of interspecies dominance. Yet 3 days later, I found myself summoned to the office of Station Administrator Kolberine, a towering Dramian whose 6 eyes regarded me with unmistakable concern. Liaison Naveen, she rumbled, her translator adding harmonics to her subsonic speech. I understand you have expertise in cross-species behavioral analysis? I nodded, my cranial ridge expanding slightly with pride. It was my secondary focus at the Academy, Administrator, though I specialize in microbial xenobiology now. Good enough. She slid a data pad across her desk. I need you to investigate an incident involving a human and a Cthar visitor. The collective high command has expressed concern. I scanned the brief report, my disbelief growing with each line. Administrator, with respect, this cannot be accurate. The Cthar are apex predators with documented histories of aggression. They don't retreat from confrontation, especially not with physically inferior species. Kolberine's breathing sacs inflated with frustration. That's precisely why you need to investigate. If it's true, we need to understand how and why it happened. If it's false, we need to correct the record before these rumors damage our diplomatic standing with both humans and Cthar. She paused, all 6 eyes blinking in sequence. The High Command fears this could either be the beginning of a dangerous escalation or an opportunity for unprecedented understanding. Why me? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Because you're here, you have the relevant background, and you're known for your skepticism regarding humans. Her mouth parts clicked with finality. Consider this your primary assignment until resolved. I left her office with the data pad and a profound sense of having been maneuvered into wasting my valuable research time. Humans were an evolutionary oddity, endurance predators with remarkable adaptability, but no significant natural defenses. I had studied their physiology enough to know they possessed no hidden weapons or special abilities that would intimidate a Cthar warrior. This would be a simple matter of debunking an exaggerated tale. I began my investigation methodically, gathering first-hand accounts from witnesses. The results were frustratingly inconsistent. I saw it all from the upper maintenance walkway, claimed a Terrellian engineer, her 4 arms weaving patterns of emphasis. The Cthar appeared out of nowhere, using that light-bending trick they do, and lunged at the human. She just raised her hand, and it was like the Cthar hit an invisible barrier. The human used some kind of sonic attack, insisted a Phelan merchant. I distinctly heard a high-pitched noise right before the Cthar backed away. Must be some secret weapon they've developed. Nothing so dramatic, countered a human security officer with a dismissive wave. From what I understand, she just startled it. Right place, right time, lucky reaction. Even the station's security footage proved unhelpful. The incident had occurred in a maintenance corridor with poor camera coverage and the Cthulhu's natural camouflage. Abilities rendered it little more than a vague distortion on the grainy recording. All I could confirm was that a human figure had indeed raised an arm, and something large had moved rapidly away moments later. What I did learn, with growing unease, was more about the Cthulhu themselves. The data archives painted a grim picture: quadrupedal when hunting, bipedal when fighting, for independently tracking eyes, chameleonic skin capable of near-perfect camouflage, unmatched sensory processing, and intelligence that matched or exceeded most spacefaring species. They rarely engaged with the galactic community except as raiders or mercenaries, and their home world remained uncharted, protected by automated defense systems that had destroyed every probe sent to investigate. The more I learned, the less sense the incident made, which meant I had only one option left. I needed to speak with the human directly. Finding Anya Sharma proved surprisingly difficult. She wasn't hiding. Humans rarely had the patience for sustained concealment, but her work schedule kept her constantly moving throughout the station's maintenance tunnels and exterior repair zones. When I finally tracked her down, she was halfway inside an environmental control unit, only her legs visible as she made adjustments to the machinery. "Engineer Sharma?" I called, making sure to use the appropriate honorific. The figure extracted itself from the unit with practiced ease, revealing a small human female with brown skin, dark hair pulled back in a practical arrangement, and features that appeared permanently creased from concentration. She wiped her hands on her work uniform and regarded me with cautious eyes. "That's me," she confirmed. "You're the liaison, right? The one asking questions about that thing that happened." Nothing about her appearance suggested capability in interspecies combat. She stood nearly 30 centimeters shorter than me, with no visible musculature that would indicate exceptional strength. If anything, she looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes that I recognized as signs of human sleep deprivation. "Yes, I'm Zyler Naveen, Xenobiological Liaison. I'd like to hear your account of the incident with the Cthulhu visitor." She sighed, closed the access panel she'd been working on, and gestured toward a small alcove where maintenance tools were stored. Not much to tell, honestly, and I got about 10 minutes before I need to be on the other side of the station. As we moved to the relative privacy of the alcove, I noted her movements, efficient but unremarkable. Nothing that would suggest specialized combat training or unusual reflexes. "I was working on a junction box in Section 47, she began, her voice quiet but clear. "Just routine stuff, replacing some worn connectors." I felt something, a presence, when you just know you're not alone. I nodded, though human intuition was still largely a mystery to me. I turned around, and there it was, just watching me. Huge for eyes, skin shifting colors like oil on water. She demonstrated with her hands, fingers spread wide. I froze at first. Who wouldn't? But it didn't attack. It seemed curious, maybe? It moved closer, reached toward my toolkit. And then I prompted when she paused. Anya looked almost embarrassed. It's going to sound stupid. It was reaching for my precision cutter, expensive equipment, And I just reacted, put my hand up and pushed it away from my face. She made a gentle, shoving motion, and I yelled back off in Hindi. Not even thinking about it, just instinct. "You pushed it," I clarified, struggling to visualize this small human physically moving a Cthulhu warrior. "Not hard. More like," she demonstrated again, palm outward in a firm but not aggressive gesture. "Just establishing space. The way you might if someone was standing too close on a crowded shuttle." And then, that's the weird part, it just stared at me, all four eyes completely focused, for maybe 5 seconds, though it felt longer. Then it stepped back, made this sound like a click hiss, and left. Just turned and walked away. She shrugged. I reported it because we're supposed to report any non-registered visitor encounters, but I didn't think it was a big deal. Now everyone's acting like I performed some miracle. I studied her face, searching for signs of deception or embellishment. I found none. Either she was an exceptionally skilled liar, not impossible for humans, but rare, or she genuinely believed her simple account. You weren't frightened? I asked. Of course I was frightened. It was a Kthar. She said this, as if explaining to a child. But fear doesn't help fix broken equipment or solve problems. You work through it. A fascinating response. I made a note to research human stress responses in more detail. Did you have any prior knowledge of Kthar behavior or psychology? Any training in interspecies defense? Tactics? She laughed, a short, sharp sound. I'm a maintenance engineer, liaison Naveen. I fix things that break. My knowledge of Kthar comes from the same safety briefings everyone gets, and those mostly say evacuate and alert security. She checked her wrist device. I need to go. Atmospheric recycler in HAB Section 3 isn't going to fix itself. As she gathered her tools, I posed one final question. Do you have any theory about why it retreated? Anya paused, considering. I've thought about it. My best guess? Surprise. It didn't expect resistance from something my size. Like how small Earth animals sometimes scare off bigger predators by making themselves look big and making noise. She shrugged again. Or maybe it just wasn't hungry. I don't know. With that remarkably understated assessment, she left, disappearing into the maze of service corridors that kept Arcadia Station functioning. I remained in the alcove, processing our conversation. Her account lacked the drama of the rumors, but held the ring of truth. Yet it only deepened the mystery. Why would a Kthar, even a curious one, retreat from such a minimal response? I had expected to expose an exaggeration or misunderstanding. Instead, I found myself with a simple, plausible account that defied explanation. My scientific instincts took over. If I couldn't dismiss the incident, I needed to understand it. That meant research on both species involved. The station's database provided extensive information on human psychology and behavior patterns, particularly their interactions with Earth's diverse wildlife. I was struck by repeated references to humans training or domesticating predatory species that outweighed them by factors of 10 or more. Wolves, bears, big cats. Earth's apex predators had, in many cases, been transformed into what humans called companions, or had learned to give humans wide berth. Most intriguing were accounts of humans facing predators in the wild. The recommended strategies often included making yourself look bigger, loud noises, and direct eye contact, all subtle dominance displays that leverage psychological intimidation rather than physical force. Humans had evolved alongside predators that could easily kill them, yet had developed non-violent deterrence methods that often succeeded. More difficult was obtaining information on Kthar social structures and psychology. As a species that largely avoided diplomatic contact, detailed studies were scarce. However, I found scattered observations from xenoanthropologists who had studied Kthar raiding parties or interviewed survivors of their attacks. 3 key insights emerged. First, Kthar society appeared highly hierarchical, with leadership determined through complex dominance rituals rather than simple combat. Second, these rituals involved significant elements of psychological intimidation, direct multiple eye contact, specific vocal tones, and precise body language. Third, and perhaps most relevantly, Kthar rarely engaged in unnecessary physical conflict, preferring to establish dominance through display and only resorting to violence when displays failed. A pattern was forming in my mind, a hypothesis that seemed simultaneously obvious and radical. What if Anya's instinctive response, the hand motion, the direct gaze, the sharp vocal command, had unintentionally mimicked a Kthar dominance display? What if, from the Kthar's perspective, this small alien had performed a perfect challenge ritual? The implications were fascinating. Not a miracle, not a weapon, but a cross-species communication coincidence. The Kthar might have retreated not from fear, but from confusion, or even a form of respect for what it perceived as a dominance claim. I was drafting notes for my report when the station's alarm system activated. 3 short pulses, the signal for a non-critical security situation. My communicator buzzed moments later with a priority message from Administrator Colberine. Liaison Naveen, Report to External Dock 7 immediately. Kthar vessel requesting emergency docking. Your expertise required. Kthar rarely requested anything, and they certainly didn't declare emergencies. Something unprecedented was happening, and somehow, I was now considered an expert. The universe has a peculiar sense of humor. When I arrived at the dock's observation room, I found a tense tableau. Administrator Colberine stood with the station's chief of security, a grizzled human named Torres, both watching the external monitors with concern. And there, to my surprise, was Anya Sharma, looking confused about her presence. Administrator, I began what? Kthar scout ship, damaged drive system, requesting emergency docking and repairs. Colberine interrupted, her speech accelerated with stress. They specifically asked for the human who understands respect. Security scans show 3 Kthar life signs aboard. I looked at the monitor. The Kthar vessel was small but predatory in design, its hull bearing the scars of recent weapons fire. Pirates? I asked. Possibly, Torres answered. Or territorial dispute with another Kthar faction. They're not exactly forthcoming with details. Anya stepped forward, eyes on the ship. And they asked for me? Why would they even know about me? An unnerving possibility formed in my mind. The Kthar you encountered. It must have reported the interaction to others. They may believe you have some special understanding of their kind. Which I don't, she stated flatly. Perhaps not consciously. I countered, my thoughts racing ahead. But your instinctive response might have accidentally aligned with their social protocols. Administrator, I believe we should allow the docking, with maximum security precautions, of course. Colberine's breathing sacs pulsed with deliberation. Liaison Naveen, you're suggesting we bring 3 Kthar aboard based on a theory about cross-species social coincidence. I'm suggesting we have a unique opportunity for diplomatic contact with a species that has historically avoided it. I turned to Anya. With Engineer Sharma's permission, of course. All eyes turned to the human, who looked distinctly uncomfortable with the attention. She studied the damaged ship on the monitor, then sighed. If they need repairs, we should help. That's what stations like this are for. But I'm not special, and I'm not a diplomat. I'm just a person who needs to know what happened. Administrator Colberine considered for a long moment, then nodded. Security protocols at maximum. The Kthar will be escorted directly to Repair Bay 12, which will clear of all non-essential personnel. Engineer Sharma, you will assess their drive system, with Liaison Naveen present as diplomatic observer. Chief Torres, position your security teams out of direct sight, but within immediate response range. The preparations proceeded with military precision. Within 20 minutes, Anya and I stood in the repair bay, surrounded by tools and diagnostic equipment, waiting as the interior airlock door slid open to reveal our visitors. The Kthar entered in single file, each standing over 2 meters tall, their muscular bodies covered in scales that shifted colors to match the bay's metallic surfaces. For eyes on each triangular head, 2 large main eyes and 2 smaller tracking eyes set wider apart, scanned the space with predatory intensity. They moved with unsettling grace, their digitigrade legs designed for explosive speed. The lead Kthar stepped forward, its scales rippling with patterns I recognized as status markings from my research. It focused all 4 eyes on Anya, who stood her ground despite being less than 2/3 its height. You, it said, its translator rendering its complex vocalizations into a harsh approximation of galactic standard. You are the respect giver. Anya glanced briefly at me, then turned back to the Kthar. I'm Engineer Sharma. I understand your ship needs repairs. The Kthar made a sound, the click hiss Anya had described earlier, and inclined its head in what might have been acknowledgement. Sharma. Yes. Drive damage from those who do not respect boundaries. You will examine. It wasn't a question, but neither was it quite a command. Anya nodded and gestured toward the airlock. I'll need to see the drive system. You will come alone, the Kthar stated. No, I interjected, stepping forward. Protocol requires. Anya raised her hand in the same motion she described using before. Palm outward, firm but not aggressive. I won't go alone, she said clearly. looking directly at the Ktharis' main eyes. Liaison Naveen comes with me. That's my condition. The tension in the bay crystallized as the Kthar and the human regarded each other. I held my breath, wondering if I was about to witness the limit of whatever strange understanding had developed between these species. After what felt like an eternity, the Kthar made that click hiss sound again. The boundary is accepted. Both may come. As we followed the Kthar through the airlock and into their ship, I whispered to Anya, "That was remarkable. You established a condition, and they accepted it without challenge." She kept her eyes on the aliens ahead of us. It seemed like the right thing to do. Clear communication, no room for misunderstanding. The interior of the Kthar vessel was dimly lit and uncomfortably warm, with a layout that prioritized function over comfort. They led us to the engineering section, where the drive system's damage was immediately apparent. A ruptured plasma containment field and significant structural damage to the power regulation systems. Anya examined the damage with professional detachment, asking technical questions that the Kthar answered with surprising cooperation. I observed their interactions closely, noting how she maintained clear personal space boundaries and direct eye contact. When speaking, unconsciously mirroring the Ktharis' own communication style. "I can fix this," she finally announced, "but I'll need parts from the station and about 6 hours of work." The lead Kthar made a gesture with its upper limbs that my research suggested indicated acceptance. "We will provide compensation according to standard trade protocols." This explicit acknowledgement of established interspecies norms was unprecedented for Kthar. I couldn't help but ask, "May I inquire about your interest in engineer Sharma specifically? There are other qualified repair technicians on the station." The Kthar turned all 4 eyes to me, its scales darkening slightly. The Sharma human demonstrated proper respect protocol to Vexkar, who reported this unusual finding. Few species understand the boundary setting without violence. It is noteworthy. Vexkar is the one I encountered in the maintenance corridor. Anya asked. A affirmative click hiss. Scout Vexkar. Young, curious, but properly trained. You established dominance without challenge, using correct protocol. This suggests humans may understand what other species do not. While Anya returned to the station to gather the necessary repair parts, I remained on the Kthar vessel with the permission of their leader, who introduced himself as Clan Commander Thexkar. This unprecedented access allowed me to ask questions that xenoanthropologists have been speculating about for decades. Your social structures are based on respect protocols rather than simple physical dominance. I observed as Thexkar showed me their ship's navigational systems. Yes, physical combat wastes resources. Intelligent species establish order through demonstration and acknowledgement. He gestured to a neural interface panel. Mind precedes action. And Engineer Sharma somehow demonstrated this correctly. Thexkar's scales rippled in what I was beginning to recognize as their equivalent of thoughtful consideration. Unexpected from prey-evolved species. She established boundary, maintained eye contact, used correct vocal assertion. Perfect respect protocol. No fear sent, no aggression sent. Only boundary sent. Boundary sent, I asked, fascinated by this revelation of Kthar chemosensory communication. All species produce it when properly asserting territory or personal space. Most mask it with fear or aggression, which triggers hunting response. Sharma produced pure boundary scent. Very rare, very respected. This explanation transformed my understanding of the incident. Humans, it seemed, produced pheromones during confrontations that Kthar could detect. Most species' fear responses triggered predatory instincts in the Kthar, but Anya's calm, boundary-setting reaction had produced a different chemical signature, one that the Kthar were evolutionarily programmed to respect. When Anya returned with the repair parts and additional tools, the Kthar gave her remarkable freedom to work on their systems, something I knew from my research they almost never allowed outsiders to do. As she worked, I continued my discussions with Thexkar, piecing together a more complete understanding of Kthar psychology and social structures. By the time the repairs were nearly complete, I had gathered enough information for a preliminary report that would transform our understanding of Kthar behavior. But events took an unexpected turn as Anya was making final adjustments to the drive system. An alarm sounded throughout the Kthar vessel, accompanied by harsh vocalizations over their internal communication system. Thexkar's scales flashed with patterns I hadn't seen before. Problem, he stated tersely. Rival clan vessel approaching. They are those who damaged our ship. They track us here. The situation deteriorated rapidly. The rival Kthar vessel took up position near the station and transmitted demands that Thexkar and his crew be handed over to them. Administrator Kolberine refused, citing diplomatic protocols, but the tension escalated when a rival ship threatened to open fire on the station if their demands weren't met. In the chaos, Anya completed the drive repairs, giving Thexkar's vessel the ability to leave, but doing so would mean abandoning them to a numerically superior force. The political implications were complex. The station couldn't officially intervene in what appeared to be a Kthar internal dispute without risking broader diplomatic incidents. As station security prepared for potential combat and evacuation protocols were initiated, Anya made a suggestion that seemed simultaneously brilliant and suicidal. "Let me speak with them," she said. Thexkar's scales rippled with surprise. They are of Kar clan, more aggressive, less respectful of protocols. But they still follow the same basic social rules, right? She pressed. Boundary setting, respect, demonstrations. I understood her thinking, but the risk was enormous. Oh no, there's a difference between an individual encounter and facing an entire hostile vessel. She looked at me with determination. But what if that's exactly what we need? A clear demonstration of boundaries. Not military threats, not diplomatic double talk. Just simple, direct boundary setting. Against my better judgment and several station protocols, we arranged for Anya to address the rival Kthar vessel via direct communication channel, with both Thexkar and Administrator Kolberine observing. The rival clan leader, who identified himself as War Commander Kravkar, appeared on screen, his scales pulsing with aggressive patterns. Before he could speak, Anya stepped forward, looked directly at the camera with unwavering eye contact, and spoke in a clear, firm voice that carried no hint of fear or aggression, just absolute certainty. This station is neutral territory. Your dispute stops at our boundary. Both clans are welcome here under peaceful protocols, but aggression against this station or anyone under its protection will not be tolerated. These are our terms. They are non-negotiable. She held her hand up in that now familiar gesture, palm forward, firm, establishing a clear line. The simplicity and directness of it was striking. There was a long, tense silence as Kravkar stared through the view screen. Then, remarkably, he made the click-hiss sound I now recognized as acknowledgement. "The human speaks with proper protocol," he stated. "The station's boundary is acknowledged." What followed was one of the most unusual diplomatic negotiations I've ever witnessed. With Anya serving as a remarkable mediator, the two Kthar clans established terms for a temporary ceasefire within station space, agreed to formal territory delineations in nearby sectors, and even arranged for a future meeting to discuss longer-term resolutions to their conflict. Throughout it all, Anya maintained the same approach: clear boundaries, direct eye contact, firm but non-aggressive tone, and precise, unambiguous language. She instinctively avoided the diplomatic hedging that characterized most interspecies negotiations, and the Kthar responded with unprecedented cooperation. When it was over, and both Kthar vessels had departed peacefully, Administrator Kolberine summoned Anya and me to her office. The Dramian's expression was unreadable, all 6 eyes blinking out of sequence, a sign of cognitive processing overload in her species. "Explain," she said simply, "what just happened." I presented my findings, detailing the remarkable cross-species communication coincidence we had discovered. Human instinctive boundary-setting behaviors, evolved for dealing with Earth predators, perfectly mirrored Kthar respect protocols. The hand gesture, the direct eye contact, the firm vocal tone, and even the specific pheromones humans produced when calmly asserting boundaries all aligned with Kthar social expectations. It wasn't a miracle or a weapon that made the Kthar back down, I concluded. It was recognition. For perhaps the first time, They encountered a species that instinctively spoke their social language without even realizing it. And yet, Kolberine noted, Engineer Sharma seems particularly effective at this communication. Anya shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. I grew up on a farm. You learn to handle large animals without showing fear or aggression. It's just setting boundaries, a skill that apparently translates across species barriers. I added, the implications for xenodiplomacy are profound. We've been approaching Cthar with either fear or aggression, both of which trigger their predatory responses. Engineer Sharma demonstrated a third option, calm, clear boundary setting, that they're evolutionarily programmed to respect. Administrator Kolberine considered this for a long moment. Liaison Naveen, I want a comprehensive report for the collective high command. This discovery could transform our understanding of not just Cthar interactions, but potentially other predator-evolved species as well. She turned to Anya. And you, Engineer Sharma, may have inadvertently pioneered a new field of practical xenodiplomacy. Anya looked alarmed. I'm just a maintenance engineer, administrator. I fix things. Perhaps, Kolberine replied with what passed for humor among Dramians. You just fixed our approach to interspecies communication. In the days that followed, I completed my formal report documenting everything we had learned about Cthar psychology, communication, and social structures. The report included recommendations for training diplomatic personnel in the specific boundary-setting techniques that Anya had demonstrated, along with proposals for further research into cross-species communication coincidences. The evening before I was scheduled to return to my original research, I found Anya in the station's observation dome, looking out at the stars. She acknowledged my presence with a nod, but continued gazing outward. Your report is complete? She asked after a comfortable silence. Yes, the collective is already implementing some of the recommendations. There's talk of establishing a specialized diplomatic corps trained in Cthar respect protocols. I paused. They've asked if you would consider consulting. She gave a short laugh. Still just an engineer who happened to be in the right place with the right instincts. Sometimes that's how the most important discoveries happen, I observed. No one expected humans to have evolved social behaviors that would perfectly align with an alien species psychology. Anya turned to face me. That's what fascinates me about all this. It wasn't some advanced technology or weapon that made the difference. It was just being human, standing our ground, setting clear boundaries, not from fear or aggression, but from self-respect. She gestured toward the stars. Makes you wonder how many other connections like that are waiting to be discovered. I considered this. In my field, we often focus on the differences between species, the unique adaptations, the specialized biology. Perhaps we should pay more attention to the convergent behaviors, the universal solutions that different evolutionary paths arrive at independently. Like how to say this far and no further in a way that doesn't start a fight, Anya suggested. Exactly. A language of respect that transcends biology. We stood in contemplative silence for a while longer, watching the slow rotation of stars beyond the station. The rumors that had once seemed so outlandish, a human stopping a fearsome predator with a mere gesture, had revealed a deeper truth about communication and coexistence. Will you take the consulting position? I finally asked. Anya smiled slightly. Maybe, but I still have environmental systems to maintain and junction boxes to repair. The universe needs engineers as much as it needs diplomats. Perhaps it needs engineered diplomats most of all, I suggested. People who understand both how systems work and where boundaries should be drawn. She considered this, then nodded. I could fix things on a bigger scale. With a grin, she added, and if all else fails, I can always slap some sense into the situation. I left Arcadia Station the next day, returning to my original research with a profoundly altered perspective. What had begun as a mission to debunk an improbable rumor had instead revealed a new frontier in interspecies understanding. The story of how humans took down the galaxy's most dangerous predators wasn't about violence or technological superiority at all. It was about the unexpected power of instinctive respect, the universal language of boundaries, and a remarkable coincidence that had allowed two vastly different species to recognize something familiar in each other. In the decades since, this understanding has transformed our approach to numerous predator-evolved species, opening dialogues where only conflict existed before. And it all began with a maintenance engineer who, faced with one of the most feared beings in the galaxy, simply raised her hand and established a boundary. The most human gesture imaginable, and, as it turned out, one that even the stars could understand.